Welcome back to the season finale of the A-Game. I'm your host, Will Battershell. In this final episode of the season, we will be talking about the drama going on in both App State football and the NBA. Starting with the unexpected story. Following the loss of the final game of the season against Georgia Southern, App State head coach Shawn Clark has been fired. I'm here with Dylan Shepard, sports writer for the Appalachian, and Tristan Beazle, co-host of Turning Laps on WASU. So, starting with Clark getting fired, what is y'all's overall reaction to it? We'll start with you, Dylan.
I think that it was to be expected after the way that this season concluded. You can't expect to lose your rivalry game against Georgia Southern for bowl eligibility and stick around for another season, especially with the way that these last couple of years have gone on a downward trend. You look at, since he came in 2019, he's had a 40-24 record, but since 2022, that record is 20-17. So that early success, those couple of bowl wins early on, that was mostly with recruits and players from previous head coaches, Elijah Drinkwitz and Scott Satterfield. Those are mostly other players, so he used them to get that early success, but he could not get his own success with his own players and his own staff in that sense. So I wouldn't be entirely surprised by that news if I was an App State fan or a close follower of college football.
Unexpected, but not really surprised at the end of the day. Obviously, if you go to App State University, you'll definitely have been hearing the rumors about him potentially being let go at the end of the year. Obviously, like Dylan said, 40-24 record, 20-17 since 2022, obviously filled with really good moments. Win against A&M, game day the next week, and the Miracle on the Mountain, obviously last season with JMU, and that rousing comeback we had last year. But this year there was an expectation for not only to win the Sun Belt Conference and win our division, but to be an underdog for a playoff spot. Mm-hmm. I believe that was the expectation that we were all talking about going in, starting up the semester in August, that, hey, this team looks really good. But to see the on-field product, as a fan, was very disappointing.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that Shawn Clark is a bad coach. He did exceptional in his time here at App State with that winning record. He also had a couple of those bowl wins, led us to a couple of Sun Belt East Division titles. So he didn't do terrible by any means or any stretch of the imagination. It's just that we didn't reach the ceiling that we expected from these players, from this coaching staff, and it leaves a little bit more to be desired in the coming years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like you mentioned earlier, a lot of his early success came off of the back of Scott Satterfield and Eli Drinkwitz and their recruiting and their staff. Once Shawn Clark kind of got going in with his own playbook and his own staff, it felt like the wheels were starting to come off a little bit. Last year, it was the start and it was the slump. This year, it just felt like we couldn't get it kicked into a higher gear as a program.
And again, like, he did a good job with the resources he had, and also there were a lot of challenges this year. You think about the impact of Hurricane Helene on Boone. That canceled a game against Liberty, which probably would have been a good resume booster had Liberty continued to build on their success. They eventually lost to Kennesaw State, but we were scheduled to play them. That would have been a really good game because Liberty, again, expected to be good. We were expected to be good. That didn't happen. So there were a lot of different adverse situations this year that probably impacted the psyche of some of the players' coaching staff. I can't say for certain that it did, but that would be just my opinion on as to how things may have shifted mid-season.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I don't want to look at just Shawn Clark as much as this is a retrospective on Shawn Clark during his time as the head football coach. I want to look at his coordinators, especially Scott Sloan. We have all sat here many a days in the WASU office and in one way or another have torn down this defense and have said that this defense is holding us back as a unit. Obviously, the offense also left a lot more to be desired, and that kind of came down to how the play calling was going, how some of the players were performing, and overall just not being a cohesive unit.
Yeah, and our defense was our main struggle this year. You talked about Scott Sloan, the defensive coordinator. I want to highlight Eric McDaniel, the defensive line coach, because we were not very good at stopping the run this year. I mean, we gave up 40 points or like near 40 points multiple times this season. I remember us getting blown out against Clemson when we gave up 66 points. We got blown out against South Alabama, a conference rival at home, where we gave up at least 38, 40 points there. It was not a good look on the defense this season, and that's where I think the majority of the struggles were. And as you mentioned, the offense had a down year as well, and so that plays on the offensive coordinator, and that plays on the offensive coaching staff there. So both sides of the ball had a down year, and you can't expect to have down year after down year on that downward slope and stick around for another season or two, as much as Shawn Clark has meant to this App State community and to App State football as a whole.
Transitioning from the bad of this season, Shawn Clark was really good for App State.
Yeah.
What are some of his key accomplishments that he accomplished for App State?
The upset against A&M, that's the biggest one that comes to mind. Obviously, last year, JMU, we needed to win to go play for a Sun Belt championship, and went into JMU, who was undefeated, ranked,
Had college game day.
had game day, and we beat them. And obviously, the Sun Belt championship game did not go the way we wanted against Troy, but we ended up winning a very, very, very fun Cure Bowl against the champions of the MAC, Miami of Ohio.
I'd also want to mention going to Carolina and competing hard with Carolina and then playing Carolina here and beating Carolina. Those were two massive games, both for the stock of App State and both just for fan interest in the sport. Because if you can beat powerhouse teams or compete with top powerhouse teams in the ACC or elsewhere around the country, you are going to get top recruits coming here. You're going to get a lot of interest in other athletes for other sports coming here. More interest in students coming to the university because they're like, oh, this university, this team beat like this top-ranked program. I want to come here and see what that experience is like. So it's a multitude of positive things that come from competing in these high-profile games and winning these high-profile games. And Shawn Clark did that multiple times.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if you really want to stop and think about it, App State has been known as a giant killer. Did it against Michigan in 07, did it against A&M a couple years ago, and the expectation was high that Shawn Clark was going to maintain the status quo. And that just didn't happen, and that's why he's been released from his contract.
So we have a lot to look forward to next year with a lot of change, which could be really exciting for the Mountaineers. But stay where you are, because when we come right back, it's basketball time.
What once were rows of crops are now hallways for growing our future. The old ways that served generations before are now the perfected paths of tomorrow. These mountains have always called to the pathfinder, the trailblazer, the innovator. The faces and structures may change, but one thing remains constant: access to higher education, here and always at App State.
Education is vital for growth and progress. What we learn shapes our future and the world that lies before us. That's why App State keeps advancing our founding mission of access to academic excellence. New programs provide new opportunities. New facilities open new doors for faculty and students. Tomorrow's solutions can be found here today. Here at the premier public undergraduate institution in the Southeast, here at App State.
Welcome back to the A Game. We're going to shift gears a little bit from football and we're going to talk about the NBA. I'm here with Noah Robertson, avid basketball fan, and Isaac Edwards, sports photographer for the Appalachian. So, what is y'all's biggest surprise of the season so far?
All right, I think it's the Houston Rockets. Like, you look at their roster and you're like, Jalen Green, maybe, but they don't have that star player, I think, that is showing on like a super team like the Bucks or Boston. It's surprising me a lot.
Yeah, I could go the cop-out route and say like the Cavs because, you know, they're not the Celtics or the champs last year, but I'm actually going to go with the Orlando Magic this year. They're I think they've won 8 out of their last 9 games without Paulo Banchero. The only issue with them I've seen so far is the consistency of Jalen Suggs, but that shouldn't be too much of an issue when Paulo comes back.
So it's December, and that means the NBA Cup is in full swing right now. What team do you think makes a run in the tournament?
I just want to say the NBA Cup is like, why? Like, why do we have it? Like, it doesn't, the only reason the players want to be in it is because they get a bag if they win. That's like the only reason. But like, you don't get, like, it's not for like a playoff spot or anything. But who do I see like as a favorite? I'm going to go to Bucks. They're a very good regular season team. I don't see like a big team like Boston, because Boston, I really don't think they, one, care to play in it, or I think they're more focused on the playoffs, like the actual playoffs, not the in-season tournament. So, yeah.
More about the cup. I mean, it's bigger than basketball at this point. The players, they get a nice salary, $500,000 reward, but it's more about the viewership. Adam Silver won more viewership in the league. It's been down the last couple of years, and this is just a way to get more people to watch the regular season. Mm-hmm. But my pick for a sleeper team for the Cup would have to be the Warriors. They have the playoff experience that a lot of these teams that are competing for a spot don't really have. The Pacers were able to make it to the championship game last year, but I think that the Warriors' experience with Steph Curry, Draymond Green, they don't have like that playoff roster that they had a couple years ago, but they're completely tied down together as a defense, and that offensive system has been working for almost a decade. So.
Mm-hmm. You only need to win a few games in the in-season tournament to make it, so it's not series. So, yeah.
Okay, so shifting from the tournament to the finals. I know it's still early in the season, but who do you see as like a sleeper pick to maybe be that team later in the year? A
sleeper pick? I would say, I'm going to say the Cavs. I think they're going to make it through the playoffs. Like, I'm going to say, like, people think they're just going to be good just for the regular season, but I think they're going to have that extra push in the postseason. Maybe make the finals, but definitely make the Eastern Conference Finals.
I don't want to jinx myself. I don't want to get my hopes up. I don't want to say it because they have not shown up in the last couple of years, but I'm going to say the Suns. You know, it's really now or never for them with Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker's contract. They have the playoff experience. They went to the finals in 2021. But with their experience that they have with all their veterans, they don't have a deep bench, but if they can run a solid 7 to 8 guys lineups in the playoffs, I think they can make a run.
Player-wise, who has really stuck out to you this season?
I'm going to have to go Wemby. Like, he's like an alien, bro. He's not from this earth. He's 7'6" and can shoot, dude. Like, I know it was a rookie season, but he's not having that sophomore slump that people think he was going to have. So, yeah, Wemby, bro, definitely.
Not showing any bias here at all, but I'm going to go with LaMelo Ball. He's averaging 31 points a game. He's looking like he did in high school. He's just out there having fun. He's hooping.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who's on the court with him. He's had like 10 different lineups up to this point.
Yes.
No matter what, he's going to give you 31, 6-5, and either a blowout loss or a close game.
Yeah. He's got his West Coast swag back, definitely.
He's got that swagger back for the
Yes.
team. Unfortunately, we're not the Hornets aren't able to put up many wins right now.
And then, so you most surprising player, but give me your most disappointing player.
I would have to say Jaylen Brown. I'm going to say it. I think he, in my opinion, coming from New England, as most of us say, he should be better than Tatum. Like, I know it's a hot take, but listen, Tatum, he did show out in the postseason last year, but Jaylen Brown they need to have that 1-2 combo. That's what I'm saying.
My pick's a bit unfortunate because this guy was balling last year, and I don't know, he just fell off a cliff, at least to start this season, is Tyrese Halliburton. I mean, his field goal and three-point percentages have been not good, not what we saw from him last year. And he also has the experience of going up against the Celtics in the playoffs last year, and he is not showing it. The Pacers only got better this year, and now they're still a mid-play-in team in the very weak Eastern Conference.
There's been a lot of exciting and disappointments throughout this NBA season so far. Thank you for tuning into another A-Game season. After such a thrilling season, we are going to take a bit of a timeout, but when we return, y'all better get excited because we're going to bring you some of the hottest sports topics around the world. Be sure to tune in for season 21 and follow us on socials at AppTV Insta.